Hello and welcome to another edition of Weapons and Warfare. For Straight Arrow News, I'm your host, Ryan Robertson, and as you can see, we are back in D.C., this time for the Association of the United States Army's annual conference. This is where Army leadership, their civilian counterparts, and scores of defense contractors gather to assess the state of our country's oldest service, as well as chart the future of the Army. Over the coming weeks and months ahead, we will have plenty of stories from right here at the AUSA event. But first, coming up in this week's show, we'll hear from the new top boss for the Air Force Special Operations Command on the near-term future of the V-22 Osprey. Plus, we check in with Lockheed Martin in our Weapon of the Week as it introduces a new entrant into the extreme-range standoff missile market, the AGM-158XR. But first, some headlines you may have missed. Vladimir Putin was dealt yet another military embarrassment that played out in real time over social media. In what can best be described as a wild scene in the skies over Ukraine, a Russian pilot shot down a Russian drone. According to multiple reports, for reasons not yet clear, the pilot of what is believed to be a Russian Sukhoi 57 felon brought down an S-70 heavy drone. Some social media searching yielded video of not only the shoot-down, but the crash site as well. So why is this especially problematic for Putin? Well, according to the Institute for the Study of War, Russian sources told them it was either an accident, aka friendly fire, or it was because they lost control of the drone and feared it ending up in Ukrainian hands. That's because the wreckage pieces could lend some insight into the stealth characteristics, or lack of them, on not only the drone, but Russia's next-gen fighters as well. A little more than a year after the Army tabbed 4 defense companies to build prototypes for its robotic combat vehicle, it looks like the service is ready to narrow down the field. So let's meet the contenders. First up and first in, the Oshkosh Defense RCV, claiming increased performance and improved maneuverability and flexibility in multi-domain operations. In early October, General Dynamics delivered its entrant into the competition, the updated TRX Tracked Robot 10-ton, featuring a hybrid electric propulsion system and an artificial intelligence-enhanced design. Textron Systems delivered its entry as well, the Ripsaw M3. This prototype features a modular open system architecture that allows for interchangeable payloads. Not yet submitted, MCQ's collaboration with BAE Systems and HDT Expeditionary Systems, which they tout as supporting light infantry, revolutionizing the battlefield while taking the load off the soldier. Once the competition is deemed complete, the Army wants the winner to produce 9 full system prototypes, all in fiscal year 2026, with the first unit fielding the RCVs in fiscal year 2028. Finally, talk about an unexpected blast from the past. Security video shows the moment an explosion ripped through a taxiway at the Miyazaki Airport in southern Japan. The October 23rd explosion left a hole 23 feet wide and 3 feet deep next to the runway. A bomb disposal team later found the cause of the explosion was an American bomb that had been buried after World War II. No injuries were reported, but video showed a Tokyo-bound aircraft taxied past the spot just 2 minutes before the explosion. This recording marks the 40th episode of Weapons and Warfare, and while we haven't been around a particularly long amount of time, there is one story we've followed almost from the beginning, the V-22 Osprey, and this week we have an update. Since March 2022, the program saw 4 crashes and the loss of 20 American service members. Most recently was last November, when a crew of 8 Air Force airmen lost their lives in a V-22 crash off the coast of Japan. That crash and the string of crashes before it prompted a service-wide stand-down of the Osprey as the investigation into the November 2023 crash moved forward. The examination found the November incident, at least in part, was caused by a catastrophic failure in one of the aircraft's gearboxes. In May, the aircraft was allowed to fly again, but only within 30 minutes of an alternate landing site. But there are signs of progress. Now it looks like the aircraft will be deployed once again, albeit with the same restrictions in place. That's the word from the new commander of the Air Force Special Operations Command, Lieutenant General Michael Conley.
We're about 60% of the fleet that's returned to flying. We've got about the same number of aircrew that are returned fully. We've had a crawl, walk, run where we've kind of pyramided this with we had to get our instructors and evaluators requalified and back up to speed quickly. And then as they went through and became fully mission ready again, we trickled that down into co-pilots and the others in the squadron.
Well, General Conley wouldn't say where the Ospreys would be deployed. He did confirm it would not be to Europe or the Indo-Pacific. Speaking at the Airspace and Cyber 2024 conference in September, he did say he was happy with the current status of the program.
We grounded the fleet for the right reasons based on the evidence we had at the time. And during the grounding period, we just learned other things. I mean, we had the opportunity to reflect on the whole program, and what kept us grounded is not necessarily what got us grounded in the first place. So as we've gone through, the whole program and looked at each aircraft specifically, gone through all the parts just to make sure the bookkeeping was tight, it's just taken time. We've been very deliberate and slow and methodical to make sure that we use that time wisely to bring us back up to speed.
As one of a handful of aircraft that are used by more than one branch of service, Conley says the stand-down also provided an opportunity to build on those inter-service relationships as everyone involved worked to get the V-22s back in the air.
I would suggest right now that sometimes there's opportunity that comes out of crisis. And the relationship we have right now with NAVAIR, the Marine Corps, PMA 275, and General Richardson's team at AFMC is probably as strong as it's ever been. As we look to what the future moves need to be, as we look to keep the V-22 fleet, the DoD V-22 fleet relevant for decades to come, the partnerships have gotten stronger.
In terms of guidance for crews that may potentially face the same issues which contributed to the November 2023 crash, General Conley says there are new safety procedures in place. Pilots are now advised to land after a second warning about metal fragments in the Osprey gearbox. Previously, the standard called for 3 warnings before a mandatory landing.
At the end of the day, there will always be aircraft commander and crew discretion. It's the nature of what we do. The environments are unique depending on where we fly and what we're doing, but we have tightened up the guidance to try to make it less ambiguous to the crews up there.
In June, the U.S. Naval Air Systems Command Chief told a congressional hearing the Osprey won't return to full flight status until sometime in 2025.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at SAN.com.
One of journalism's greatest cliches may be coming to an end, and that's because you apparently can teach an old dog new tricks. Taking a page from the Anderls of the defense contractor world, Lockheed Martin recently took a gamble on a program with no confirmed buyer. And that gamble is why the AGM-158XR is our weapon of the week.
It's what I would call a story of innovation and anticipating warfighter needs, which means we are investing in something that we want to provide as an option for the Air Force to consider. It leverages off the existing JASSM and LRASM lines. It essentially is a stretch version of those missiles, and think of fuel, more fuel, much longer range. In the case of XR, which means extreme range, it's long range.
The AGM-158XR is the next evolutionary step to Lockheed Martin's AGM-158B Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile and the AGM-158C Long-Range Anti-Ship Missile, respectively known as the JASSM and LRASM, both of which were recently bought by the Air Force in large numbers. The cost of the contract was a little more than $3.5 billion, according to the Pentagon. But this is about the XR. Introduced at this year's Airspace and Cyber Conference, John Hill, the Vice President and General Manager for Air Dominance and Strike Weapons at Lockheed Martin Missiles and Fire Control, yes, that's his full title, told us the XR represents the next step in the AGM line's production. It can carry more fuel, a larger payload, and be fired from even greater distances, upping the safety factor for the pilots sending it on to its final destination.
Yeah, I think the real benefit of it, whether this particular configuration moves forward as a program or not, is the fact that when we went in to extend and add additional fuel, it gave us the opportunity to modularize the current weapon system. It allows us to go in and digitize the areas where it makes sense. And so the benefit to JASSM and LRASM and future weapons is that we will have digitized, which is part of the whole model-based system engineering approach for future weapons. It makes integration on a different aircraft easier and more straightforward. It allows us to upgrade pieces and parts that have become obsolete. So all those things that we're able to do, as you're developing a new weapon without doing a new start program.
A few things about the XR caught our eyes right away. First, it's not small. Despite its size, it can be flown on just about every platform in the DoD's hangar, except for the F-16. Second, the jet black paint job is not just for looks.
There are some cases where this can be enclosed in a bay, but more than likely it'll be hanging from a wing. And so if you just think very simply of what a white outer mold line might look like versus something that's painted dark, it's much harder for adversaries or anybody else that may be looking on a flight line or in the air to really understand shape and size and weight. And so you can glean a lot from size, right, in terms of capability, but it reduces your ability to do that when it's painted a darker color.
While the full details of the XR are not yet publicly known, a Lockheed Martin rep says it could be test flown in 2026, but is still several years away from being ready for production. Back in March, we told you about the Marine Corps' decision to start testing on basically its spin of a narco sub, the type of vehicle favored by the drug cartels in South America. Well, the Marine Corps is now ready for its next phase of testing, deployment, and that's the subject of this week's Comms Check. As the Marine Corps continues to push forward with Force Design 2030, its effort to stay in front of America's near-peer adversaries like China, it's also looking for new ways to keep Marines in the fight. In the Pacific, that could very well include a new unmanned submersible autonomous vehicle, capable of delivering supplies and weapons to forward-deployed Marines. Reported by the Stars and Stripes, the testing is expected to last nearly a year in the waters in and around Okinawa, Japan.
We were able to accelerate what we call the autonomous low-profile vessel. Truth be told, this is just a narco boat. We stole the idea from friends down south. And so this is, 55 feet long, completely autonomous. It's able to go hundreds or thousands of miles. It's able to carry weapon systems that we have that are new. It can carry fuel, it can carry food, it can carry pretty much anything you want to put in it. And that's an example there of a capability that then can enable us to have resupply with a risk-worthy vessel in contested environments and then help resupply the force.
Over the last few months, Marines simulated covert resupply missions with the ALPV off the coast of Naval Base Point Loma in Southern California.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
We are nearing the end of this edition of Weapons and Warfare. What a backdrop for our 40th episode. When in our nation's capital, it really helps put into perspective how much others gave for us to be here. When you walk along the Capitol Mall and you see the different war memorials, like the Vietnam Memorial behind me, and you read the names etched in stone, that phrase, all gave some gave all, really rings true. And honestly, I'm sort of reminded of that scene in Saving Private Ryan, when Tom Hanks' character tells Matt Damon's, "Earn this. Earn the sacrifice others made for your sake." This episode publishes on October 16th. In 3 weeks' time, voters in our nation will go to the polls and exercise their ultimate right, their ultimate freedom. The freedom to choose our next leader. But I'd offer it's not the only choice to be made in the next few weeks, or few days, or even few hours. When the men and women whose names are etched in stone around this town gave everything, it wasn't for a political party, it wasn't for a king, or in the name of religion. It was for their country, for the ideals and values we as Americans should all hold dear. That free thought and speech are vital for the individual and the country. That the burden of rule is a shared endeavor. That all were created equal. No one is above the law, and justice must win out. We make choices every day that can either reflect those values or reject them. And I would argue exercising our duty as Americans isn't just about voting for a political candidate or making sure the opposition loses. Too many people have died for us to just leave it there. We have to earn what they sacrificed for us. And it really was for all of us, and not just the people who think like us. For senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics artist Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson with Straight Arrow News, signing off.